Today we are making vegan grilled cheese and tomato soup, the classic combo, which for some reason I just recently discovered so naturally that means I've been eating it nonstop the past couple of days, and for good reason, as there's just something magical about dunking a grilled cheese in tomato soup. So to get started, let's talk about the grilled cheese. I'm going with the standard architecture of white bread, butter, and American cheese. And it's really tough to beat this trio. You can use vegan mayo instead of butter, but I personally think butter tastes better. And for the cheese, these are my two favorite American cheeses as of late. The So Delicious is probably my favorite, but this Violife stuff ain't bad either. And Follow Your Heart is also good, and this Tofutti stuff is probably the most like non-vegan cheese, but when it melts, I find it kind of just disappears, but other than that, it's pretty good. And making a grilled cheese is quite simple. Get some softened vegan butter either left out on the countertop for a bit, or you can microwave it for like 5 or 10 seconds, and then get a skillet, preferably non-stick, and I like to do mine on medium-low, and then a little trick to help the vegan cheese melt is to actually place it directly on the skillet like so, and you just want to kind of move it around, get it to melt a little bit. And I was a little too aggressive and this cheese split apart, so maybe treat your cheese a little bit more gently. And this works out okay, but an even better trick is to get your pan up to medium heat, add your first slice of bread, and then once the pan is hot, add a couple drops of water and then place your vegan cheese directly on top of that. And the water is going to help it steam and also keep it from sticking. And you just want to kind of move it around, and you only need to do this for like 10 seconds or so, and then quickly and confidently scoop it up with a spatula and place it on top of your bread. And of course, I probably should have done 2 slices of cheese, but this was just done for demonstration purposes as well as a mid-morning snack. But as you can see, this is the fastest way to melt your stubborn vegan cheese. And then all we really need to do, of course, is grill our sandwich to our golden brown preference. I know some folks like it nearly burnt. I am not one of those folks, so for me, this was perfect. Now, I've made this before, but I wanted to see how good a grilled pimento cheese sandwich would be with tomato soup, and so I got to making some pimento cheese, which is probably my favorite cheese dip at the moment. But to make it, we'll need half a cup of vegan mayo and then an 8-ounce container of vegan cream cheese. I like this stuff by Kite Hill, but if you want to make your own cream cheese, I have a recipe already, link in the description for that. And then once we add our cream cheese, the next component is 8 ounces of shredded cheddar cheese. And for something like this, I prefer to grate my own, so I'm going to get a Daiya block and grate the entire thing, which is actually 7 ounces, but that's okay, close enough. And then we're going to add in the shredded cheese, and at this point I realized I picked a bowl that was way too small, and this is going to be a theme for this video, so strap in. Once we have a big enough bowl, we'll add in that cheese, and next, this is totally optional, but I went ahead and diced up 2 jalapenos, which did make this a little bit spicy, so if you don't like spicy pimento cheese, skip this step. And next we'll add in the namesake, of course, a 4-ounce jar of diced pimentos, and make sure you drain them of their liquid first. And then last but not least, some seasonings such as smoked paprika, cayenne, garlic powder, and a little salt and pepper. Mix that up, and there you go. That is your pimento cheese, perfect for a sandwich, or you could totally just get a cowboy hat chip and dip, some crackers, and then take this to your next potluck, or maybe just eat it by yourself like I am here. And now we can watch me attempt to get the perfect dip shot, when in reality I was just looking for an excuse to eat as much of this as possible because it's just that good. But you didn't come here to watch somebody eat a cowboy hat chip and dip, you came here for some sandwiches and soup, so let's get back to that. And the pimento cheese sandwich is even easier because we don't have to engage in any Rube Goldberg style antics to melt our cheese. Simply add a healthy portion of it to your bread, grill it on both sides until golden brown, and enjoy. And now I want to see which sandwich is the best to dip in some tomato soup, but first we got to make the soup, which reminds me this is a good time for one of my favorite Beethoven quotes. Now this was my first time making this soup, so there are a couple of boo-boos, but it turned out great, so who cares? And the first boo-boo was picking this non-stick skillet that was also way too small. Cooking acidic foods like tomatoes is not the best for non-stick pans as it screws up the coating. But before I googled that, I added in some olive oil, 1 cup of roughly chopped shallots, a teaspoon of oregano, 1 teaspoon of red pepper flakes, a tablespoon of nutritional yeast, and then 1 tablespoon of some mushroom seasoning. And stir that around, and then we're going to add in some chopped garlic. We're going to let that cook for a minute or so, and then we're going to add in 2 28-ounce cans of San Marzano tomatoes with their juices. And you can crush these before you add them or just smush them with your wooden spoon like I am here. And at this point, I knew I had made a mistake, so I added my soup to another pot, and then I added in about 3/4 cup of these roasted red bell peppers, and then I realized I made another mistake. So I added my soup to an even bigger pot. Third time's the charm, I guess. And now that we've got plenty of room, we'll add in 1 cup of veggie broth. I'm going to add in a whole can of full fat coconut milk. I'm using just the cream and not the coconut water at the bottom. So stir that around, give that a taste, and next we're going to add in some black pepper and salt to taste. Always season your soup to your own taste. In fact, my wife said that the soup reminded her more of a creamy tomato soup, kind of like Panera. So if you want a more acidic soup, I recommend throwing in a tablespoon or 2 of tomato paste. And then I decided to add in a little MSG to the soup, totally optional, but if you got it, use it. And just like adding tomato paste to make it more acidic, I'm going to add in a couple tablespoons of sugar to make it a bit sweeter. So do the same if you like, and really please season and flavor this to your taste. That's the beauty of soup. You can really do whatever you like. And once your soup is tasting good, bring it up to a low boil and simmer it for about 5 or 10 minutes just to get the flavors to hang out for a bit. And now you can totally use an immersion blender for this, but for something like this, I prefer a high-speed blender. Plus, I have to clean 3 pots, so what's a blender at this point? And since this is so much soup, I'm going to do it in batches. And there you go. That's what the soup looks like after blending. You can even go another step and press this through a fine mesh strainer to get all the tiny fibers out, but for me, this was just fine. And now that our soup is done, let's go ahead and add it to a bowl and maybe drizzle a bit more of that coconut milk if you're feeling a little fancy. And now let's dip our classic grilled cheese and make sure you get plenty of that tomato soup on there. And I just gotta say, I don't know how I went 44 years without doing this, but better late than never. I might have done this when I was a kid, but I don't remember. So if I did, it must have not made much of an impression on me. But this is just, I mean, it's probably in my top 10 favorite meals now. It's up there with burgers, tacos, mac and cheese, pizza, and whatnot. It's just one of those perfect meals, as you all probably know. But what we don't know is, will a pimento grilled cheese and tomato soup be even better? So let's try that out. And so I'll give it a nice old dip in, and I gotta say, while this was good, the flavors just didn't meld as perfectly as they did with the classic grilled cheese. It might have been the jalapenos, as the spice was definitely coming through, and usually I like spicy stuff, but in this instance, it was a little distracting. Still super delicious, but in my opinion, I'd rather eat the pimento grilled cheese on its own. I think the pimento cheese is just way too much of a showboat to share the stage with anybody else. And now, if you want to make the best grilled cheese I've ever made and dip it in some tomato soup, go ahead and click on this video link right here. If you do make any of this, let me know how it goes. I hope you're all doing great, and I'll see you next time.